Folks, we have breaking news coming out of Afghanistan. We heard about this about 30 minutes ago. I didn't tell you about it during my last video, which was on CERN, because I want to get more facts. But we have them. We have more information now, and this is not a good situation. There's been, according to Agent 2020, who's got some more inside info, there was 2 explosions, one at the south gate, one at the north gate of the Karzai International Airport there in Afghanistan. Matter of fact, I have a report. This one came out by the USA Today 20 minutes ago. It said the latest from Afghanistan. Explosion has been reported outside of Kabul airport, and President Joe Biden has been briefed. The explosion outside the gates of Kabul's international airport, where U.S. and allied forces evacuations are taking place, left a chaotic and bloody scene, according to reports on the ground. Channel 1 Afghan news station published photos of the immediate aftermath of the blast, showing people fleeing the scene, and images from reporters inside the airport show a large dust cloud envelop one side of the airport as an explosion scattered crowds of people and fire raising high. So this was a significant explosion. President Joe Biden has been briefed on the explosion outside of Hamid Karzai International Airport there in Kabul, and details are still emerging about the explosions. They're explosions, as you can see. At the time of this article, the Pentagon, USA Today only thought there was 1 explosion. I can tell you there's been 2. They're very large, and there is many casualties as far as people who are dead and injured. I can tell you that there was an Italian cargo plane being used to transport Italian citizens and Afghanis fleeing the area. The plane has been hit by the explosion. We do not know how many people were injured in that plane or how bad that plane was damaged, but it was an Italian cargo plane being used to transport Italian citizens as well as Afghanistan's wanting to flee the country was hit. Also, there is reports that 3 U.S. soldiers initially were wounded, as well as several British soldiers also have been wounded. There are other reports of many casualties. Some are dead, some are wounded. This is all happening right now as we speak. It's a very fluid situation taking place on the ground in the airport. It has left thousands of people running for their lives after standing in the sewage, standing in the gauntlet, standing in line under Taliban, beating them with sticks and butts of their rifles and dragging some away. We have reports of people being hung in their home, and there's all kinds of chaos now. Now with these 2 explosions, one at each gate, one at the north gate, one at the south gate, this has left the entire airport in a state of panic. Now, the Taliban has been saying that ISIS was about to strike with a terrorist attack somewhere in Kabul and threatening people that were trying to get, especially Americans, who are trying to get to the airport to leave. That they told the Pentagon, the State Department, told Americans, don't go to the airport today. There's a high threat of a terror attack by what's a group called ISIS-K. But I'm not so sure it's ISIS-K. I don't know who it is. It could easily be the Taliban, blaming it on ISIS-K because they want to make sure that ISIS-K is the enemy of the world and not them, the Taliban, because those 2 hate each other. So you don't know if it's ISIS-K, is it the Taliban? Is it somebody else? And this sure does protect a lot of politicians now, because there's thousands of Americans get left behind. Now, Jake Sullivan of the Pentagon said 1,500 Americans were still in Kabul. I want to use the word stranded there. But Lindsey Graham said he has a list of names of over 4,100 that he knows are still there. So we're not getting, and then there's other reports, there could be as much as 10,000 Americans. So somewhere between 1,500, 4,100, and 10,000 is the right number of Americans who need to get out of there, who want to get out of there. Now you keep hearing Jen Psaki say every American that wants to go can go. Really? They're blowing up the gates of the airport. The Taliban is standing in the streets threatening people's lives. But you can go if you want to go. They make it sound like that it's the Americans' fault that they didn't want to go, or they didn't know if they wanted to go or not. Folks, there's a bunch of school kids, 24 of them, with 16 parents who have been trying to get out of, they were there on some kind of trip, and I don't know what they are thinking going to a war zone, but that's another subject. Now they want out of it. They've been there for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Now they want out of there. They had tickets to fly to leave on a commercial flight on August the 15th. But all hell broke loose on the 14th. The country collapsed. And this group can't get to the airport. And now the clock is ticking, and what's going to happen to them and to a lot of people? And so let me just tell you, this is what's going on right now. I talked to Agent 2020. He gave me some inside info. Again, you probably haven't heard this on the news, but there's 2 explosions. One's at the South Gate, one at the North Gate. According to Amir Safari, his contacts tell him that the Italian cargo plane has been hit by one of the explosions. We don't know how many people were on that plane to try to leave, or how many of those folks may have been injured. Reuters is reporting that 3 U.S., this is not Reuters, I'm wrong on this. Agent 2020 is reporting to me that 3 U.S. soldiers were wounded and several U.K. casualties of soldiers. And some of them might be wounded, or maybe they're all wounded, maybe they're all dead, I don't know. And many are dead or wounded and are being seen bloody situation as people are being running for their lives and carrying people and packing them out of there as fast as they can. And it is now a massive chaotic scene, to say the least. It is a dangerous situation. Let me just quickly do another update for you that we're getting now. Give me 1 second here. I have some water. Still trying to get over this. The suicide bomb hit the crowd. Of course, we know it's American troops are wounded. The casualty count is unclear. ISIS is already claiming responsibility. The ISIS suicide bomber kills 13 people at Kabul airport. Multiple casualties, including children. 3 U.S. Marines are wounded in serious condition as explosion tears through a crowd. And then there's a second explosion. There was an explosion at the Abbey Gate in Kabul airport, and at least 13 people are dead. At least 3 U.S. troops are wounded in the explosion. The blast came hours after officials warned of an imminent bomb threat by ISIS-K. U.S. troops closed the airport gates after the threat was reported while rushing to remove citizens. America's top diplomat in Afghanistan, Ross Wilson, claims it is still safe to go to the airport. What is he smoking? What is he smoking? It's not still safe. The Pentagon has insisted it will not withdraw troops in the next 36 hours and will stay until August 31st. But there's 6,000 troops. You can't fly them all out of there in one day unless you use every plane available. And maybe that's the plan. Now, Canada, Britain, Holland, Poland have all started winding down their evacuation missions in light of the growing threat. And there's at least 1,000 Americans in Afghanistan. That's not correct. We just heard the Pentagon say 1,500, and we heard Lindsey Graham said 4,100, and we have reports that it could be as many as 10,000. Wilson claims today that his office is making phone calls to find them all and save them. President Biden, who has refused to take responsibility for this evacuation, is not due to speak about the crisis publicly today. Biden has been briefed on the explosion and is now in the Situation Room. Now, a suicide bomber has killed 13 people, including children. 3 U.S. Marines injured at the Kabul airport. It is falling apart. The wheels are falling apart. The whole country's been taken over. We don't know what the Taliban is doing to people already in the outlying areas. We do not know the 13 people killed. We do not know the nationalities of them. It's unclear if any of them are Americans. The victims are not yet known. There's some awful footage that you can check out and see if you want to, but I really, it's not good. And the State Department now saying, go ahead and make a run for the Pakistani border, which is now overrun with Afghanistan. It's nearly 200 miles away. So they're telling people, if you're out there, go to Pakistan, try to get to the border, try to run and get across the border. But if you do, you could get shot. Also, Turkey said they don't want any of these people. Okay, so it's getting very ugly out there now. It's two massive. We know one explosion now. We're hearing two, but I have not got that confirmed. That the two explosion theory, that's coming from Amir Safari, who is really good, but his reports are there were two. He could be right, he could be wrong, but we know for sure that the explosion was at the Abbey Gate. That we know for sure, the Abbey Gate. Which some people, there's a north gate, there is no south gate. There's a north gate, there's a main entrance, there's an east gate, and there's an Abbey Gate. Now the Abbey Gate could be considered, and by some people it's considered the south gate, but it's called the Abbey Gate. And then we know that's where the explosion happened. People are being wheeled away in wheelbarrows, bleeding profusely. The dead is being carried. U.S. soldiers placed the gate closed on one of the crowded entrances of Kabul airport as hundreds of desperate Afghanistani and Americans try to get on board. The U.S. now working to evacuate everyone that can in the next 36 hours, and then will withdraw 2 days earlier than the Taliban's 31st deadline. That's what we're hearing. Now, that could change. It's a very fluid situation. It's a very dangerous situation right now. And we can't get the truth. We're getting conflicted reports from the State Department, from the Pentagon, from the White House, and from different media outlets. It's obviously we have a critical situation. Lord have mercy is right. Lord have mercy on these people. Let me just also take another peek, if you guys don't mind, at some of the more information that we're hearing out there. One second, please. So you already see conflicting reports. The media says there's one explosion. Amir Safari says there's 2. So we're getting some confliction. We'll see if there is 2 or not. There may not be. Okay, we got an update now 15 minutes ago. Here's the latest update. Yes, U.S. personnel are among those wounded in the Kabul airport explosion. We know that. We know there's at least 3 Marines, but the explosion took place outside of Kabul airport at one of the gates. Yes, we know it's the Abbey Gate. And 3 U.S. officials and a source familiar with the situation said that according to initial reports, there were some U.S. personnel wounded. We're hearing there's 3 U.S. Marines, and we can confirm it was near the Abbey Gate, and it resulted in an unknown number of casualties. According to Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby. So he didn't say how many were dead or wounded, but we are getting reports that 13 people are dead. And then crowds of Afghanis have been gathering at the gates trying to gain access to the airport, which has become the only way out of the country since the Taliban took over. The U.S. Embassy in Kabul said the U.S. citizens who were at the Abbey Gate, East Gate, or North Gate of the airport should leave immediately. Okay, where do they go? Back through the streets of the Taliban home? Stop and get an ice cream on the way. Oh, find food anywhere if you can. There's been a large explosion on the airport. There's reports of gunfire also being heard. U.S. citizens should avoid traveling to the airport, avoid the airport gates at this time, says the Pentagon. The French ambassador to Afghanistan, David Merton, warned that a second explosion at the Kabul airport remains a possibility. So here we're getting a confirmation now. So now, after everybody was told there was one, now we're getting one saying to our Afghan friends, if you are close to the doors of the airport, get away as quickly as possible and shelter yourselves. A second explosion is possible, he tweeted. Tens of thousands of people have been evacuated by the U.S. military and NATO allies from the airport in the past 2 weeks. We know this. These evacuations are set to start winding down. Guys, they're already winding down. When they're blowing up the gates, it's almost over, okay? And some people are going to have to get out of here because of private mercenaries and groups that are trying to fix the problem, trying to save the people. Harris is doing a fundraiser in California, so don't worry about her. She's on top of things. But Biden's somewhere in the basement. We're trying to find out what's going on with these people. It looks like our brave Marines are left to fend for themselves and to try to rescue these American souls who are trying to get out of there, and not counting them. What about the translators? They don't have a chance. But we do know that most of the people that have got out of Afghanistan were not U.S. citizens or Afghani translators, but were just Afghanistan citizens fleeing the Taliban. And they got the front row seat, and there's thousands of them. And I am not saying anything negative about that, because they're fleeing a horrific war zone situation and a new oppressive, not new, but the same murderous mad dogs of the Taliban taking over. Nobody, by the way, nobody's been fired in the Biden administration. The Secretary of Defense, which I never see him, Jay Sullivan, where's he at? Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State. These guys are empty suits. Jake Sullivan, what? And at the Pentagon, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, we don't even see in the top brass. They never walk out there. And the Vice President has been in Singapore, Vietnam, and now going to California to do a fundraiser with the beleaguered California Governor Newsom, which, oh, by the way, is losing in the polls right now to Larry Elder, who's a conservative talk show host who might end up being the next governor of California, thank God. But because he's really a pretty good guy. But anyway, all of this is happening right now while the gates of hell are blowing open in hell itself, a place called Afghanistan. And if you don't think Bible prophecy, and you know, it's really interesting. I did a video yesterday because in my spirit, I felt like I should talk about the fact I've been saying that the Taliban may be the red horsemen of the apocalypse. Matter of fact, there was even articles written about it in the UK. And I've been saying that. And now, yesterday, I felt like, hey, this whole situation of the Taliban taking over Afghanistan, this might be what opens the door to Ezekiel 38. You might say, how's that relevant? It's very relevant, because now this becomes the Mecca, if you will. This becomes the harboring of the incestuous terrorist groups that could come and consolidate in this world jihad movement, which I've heard Lieutenant Colonel Jack, retired Lieutenant General Jack Keenan talk about. So we are dealing with, and right now the Congress, the only thing they're doing is passing a $5 trillion spending bill in the House, and you can't find a Democrat leader to help with this situation. And Newsom's going to hold a fundraiser. He's trying to just hang on to his job instead of helping get people out of Afghanistan. And the vice president's going to fundraise with him. I wonder if Buttigieg's going. Oh, keep that. Just keep an eye on Pete Buttigieg. He may be your next vice president, sooner rather than later. I'm not going to tell you how I heard that info. It's just, look, things are happening at an incredible pace right now. Let me just check and see if we've got more information. I can't confirm that there's been 2 explosions, but CNN is reporting 16 minutes ago that there was a warning that there could be a second explosion at the international gates. But Amir Safari is already saying that there has been a second explosion, and and also Agent 2020 is getting info about that. Give me just 1 second. Give me 1 second here. We have another update 7 minutes ago. Fox in Austin, Texas says 2 dead, 15 wounded. But we have another report, 13 dead. And we have another report that there was 2 suicide attacks. Now this is coming out of Russia. Russia is saying that there were 2 suicide attacks. 13 are dead. Russian Foreign Ministry says a second explosion has gone off outside the Kabul airport. So now we're getting a government official telling us there's been 2 explosions. But the United States Pentagon says there's only been 1. The twin suicide attacks, so now we know Agent 2020 was right. We know that Amir Safari was right because the Russians are telling us. A twin suicide attack killed at least 13 people, at least, wounded another 15 at least. And U.S. officials said that American personnel were wounded in the blast. Without elaborating, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby, that's another empty suit, tweeted that Americans were among the casualties. They spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss ongoing operations, but the blast happened outside the airport, where thousands of Afghanis have gathered hoping to join the U.S.-led airlift after the Taliban took over. And Russian officials say that no, they're not saying that ISIS took it. They're not sure who did it. This area was controlled by the Taliban, and that's where it happened. So I guess ISIS just strolled in among the Taliban and blew the gates off. Or is the Taliban blaming ISIS, which is what I suspect. It's also what Agent 2020 suspected. But you heard it here first. We told you there were 2 explosions 25 minutes ago when we came on live. We told you there were 2. And the State Department and the Pentagon has yet to tell you that. They still say there was 1. They tell you 2 people were hurt. We're telling you 13 at least are dead. 15 at least are wounded, and those numbers are probably going to go up. And that's probably the casualties of the first explosion. We're also telling you that 3 U.S. Marines were injured, and that 2 or 3 UK soldiers wounded or dead. We can tell you that we've heard nothing. The vice president's going to California for a fundraiser. The president is somewhere in a bunker and is not scheduled to speak to the American people. Now, that he may change his mind and have to come out and say something before this day is over. But I don't think this day is anywhere near over of the events that's about ready to unfold there. I need you to understand, the wheels are coming off. The train has been hijacked, but now the wheels are coming off. It's coming off. They're completely coming off the rail now. And don't be shocked if the Americans don't take their soldiers, get them on planes, and start flying them out of there ASAP. Don't be shocked if you hear that. Because if you're not going to send them out and give them the authority to do their job, if you're not going to, allow the special ops to come in and try to extract people, at this point now, it's so incredibly off track that it's going to be impossible almost to do these things. I want to thank all 1,200 of you for coming over here and helping me out here. We went live, but we want to let me give you some more information. I don't know if, so the Russians are confirming what we broke to you almost 30 minutes ago, that there were 2 explosions instead of 1. The State Department has not reported that yet. The Pentagon has not reported it. The White House has not reported that. But it was near a hotel not far from the one of the gates. Now, here's a report coming out of the UK Sun, which actually wrote an article about me yesterday. The UK Sun has confirmed there was a second suicide bomber. 13 people are dead. Kabul airport is now in a state of absolute chaos. 13 people have been killed after 2 explosions rocked Kabul airport as desperate Afghanis and Americans are trying to flee. The U.S. officials confirmed the first blast was at the Abbey Gate, was caused by a suicide bomb, with initial reports suggesting a second explosion was a car bomb. And I'm seeing the photos. It's very disturbing. The second explosion was actually near the East Gate, and the Barron Hotel. The Barron Hotel, very close to the East Gate. There were two blasts, minutes apart. The first one hitting the Abbey Gate on the southern side of the airport, so that's why you could call that the South Gate, but it's actually the Abbey Gate. And the second one at the East Gate, or at the Barron Hotel. ISIS are believed to be behind these horrific explosions. That's according to Politico. But a British defense source told Sky News it is highly likely that ISIS-K was responsible for these attacks. Now, the Pentagon's press secretary, John Kirby, said, "We can't confirm that the explosion at the Abbey Gate was a result of a complex attack that resulted in a number of U.S. and civilian casualties. We can also confirm at least one other explosion at other or near the Barron Hotel, a short distance from the Abbey Gate, has happened." Okay, so now he's confirming it. 3 U.S. troops and dozens of civilians were among those hurt in the carnage at the gate, where thousands of people have massed over the past 12 days. And you got to know there was another stampede. You got to know there was another stampede. And that's how 7 people got killed a few days ago. Now, reports said the blast was close to the Barron Hotel near the East Gate, which Western nations had used to stage some evacuations. Bloodied survivors were raced from scene in wheelbarrows, according to local TV news. I've seen pictures of that. Horrific footage shows desperate loved ones searching through piles of bloodied bodies and rubble for survivors. And so I'm saying that the death toll will probably rise. And a UK official said there were no reports of any British military government casualties, but U.S. soldiers have been hurt. But of course, we have reports that there were some UK soldiers also injured. We'll wait and see. Boris Johnson will chair an emergency Cobra meeting today. Glad the British are trying to figure this out, because we can't find our leadership in our nation. And the UK government spokesman said, "We are working urgently to establish what has happened and its impact on the ongoing evacuation effort. Our primary concern remains the safety of our personnel, British citizens, and the citizens of Afghanistan. We are in close contact with our U.S. and other NATO allies at an operational level on the immediate response to this incident." But hours before, the UK government warned that Kabul airport faced imminent, highly lethal attack. Desperate Afghanis were told, forget the airport, run for the border to flee from the Taliban. The Taliban took a U.S. Black Hawk helicopter for a joyride after seizing 200,000 firearms. And I'm going to have to ask Mike from around the world about that tonight, because, I know Mike knows a lot, but I was concerned. The fact that we have 40 aircraft sitting there, Black Hawk helicopters, as well as aircraft, and 16,000 night goggles, and literally 750,000 rifles, and gazillions of rounds of ammunition, and hand grenades, and rockets, and rocket launchers, and God knows what else. And I asked Mike last Thursday, why didn't we just blow this stuff up? He said, don't worry about that. Remember, he said that. He said, don't worry about it. We can disable those without even going there. And I believe he's right. I totally believe he's right. And I totally believe we didn't do it. Or the Taliban wouldn't be flying around in one of our Black Hawk helicopters right now. So Mike's right. We can do it. But obviously, we haven't done it. Just like we haven't done a lot of stuff that our military is capable of doing, but are not giving the green light to do. Like, how about evacuating the American citizens first? And the translators. Then get all of our equipment out of there. Then blow up the forts that we built. Then get our soldiers out of there. Why couldn't that have been the plan? It was Trump's plan. So when Mike says, don't worry about it, we could blow these things up. We can do this without even going there. We have capability to just fry them. He's right. We do. But we didn't. And we haven't. And we didn't get the people out first. And we didn't take our equipment out. And we didn't blow up the forts. And we haven't got our soldiers out. Now we got some of them wounded or dead. It is unfathomable for me. Understanding the power of the U.S. military and the capability and the brain power and the bravery that these men and women have. And their hands are literally tied behind their backs. I'm going to get off here right now, but I'll be back. Let's monitor this situation. It's been developing as we've been here the whole time. Pray for our troops. Pray for the Americans that are stuck. Pray for those 24 kids and 16 parents that went on a field trip in Afghanistan. Dumb thing to do. But, of course, they were told everything's fine, everything's safe. Plenty of time. Taliban's hiding in the mountains. U.S. is in control. Afghanistan government's got 300,000 soldiers. It's all good. You can go ahead and take a trip and still get back. Leave by the 15th. Got tickets ready. Didn't know that the country would fall in 11 days. I would have never took people to... Look, no, maybe Israel. I would take people to Israel. Yeah, that's safe. I'm telling you, Jerusalem's the safest city maybe in the world. I did take 58 people to Israel. They had the time of their life. I wouldn't take 58 people to Detroit. I wouldn't take 58 people on a bus to Baltimore. I wouldn't take 58 people in an armored bus. I wouldn't take 58 people in a tank to Portland. I wouldn't take 58 people to Chicago, Atlanta, Los Angeles, New York City, Houston. But I certainly wouldn't take 24 kids to Afghanistan. I'll be back. Give your life to Jesus Christ. You know what Jesus said about all this? He said, there'll be wars and rumors of wars and all these other things, but these things must come. They must come. Are you saved? Because you know what? Jesus Christ, I don't know when he's coming, but we're getting close. Don't miss tonight. Also, I'll be back later, but I will be live tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Mike from around the world is going to join us. We hope to get some real good information of what he knows that's happening and what can he share with us, as he always does a great job. Wow. Somebody is dropping the ball. Somebody has done more than just drop the ball. It is unbelievable what's happening. Are you serious?